Today on the Inside Scoop, we are live. Yep, that's right. We got a special live show going on right now because the college transfer portal is officially open. That's why you see the man himself, Portal Pete Nakos, on threes, portal expert insider. He is with me. And Pete, it's not even been 24 hours since the transfer portal has opened. It opened Friday at midnight, so 12 a.m. Friday morning. It officially opened. What can we expect today? Can we expect, because on signing day, you know, it's a window. Yeah. It's a 3-day window, but everybody treats signing day like it's the only day you can sign. We always see a lot of transactions opening as soon as 7 a.m. So today the portal's been open for about 15 hours so far. What can we expect? A lot of transactions taking place, or is today just the beginning?
Well, I've gotten about 4 hours of sleep. Of those 15 hours, the portal's been open. You know, I think what you're going to see is a lot of visits start to get lined up for the top quarterback, you know, targets on the market. And then past that too, you're going to start to see some dominoes start to fall. But I'll tell you what, you know, we're 15 hours in, as you mentioned. And I think that, you know, I don't think we're going to see a ton of quarterback commitments today. Give it 48 hours, though, and things could definitely pick up.
Now, you've been busy. Like you said, you only slept 4 hours. You're not really tracking who's entering the portal because a lot of those guys kind of made those announcements over the course of the last 3 weeks. So what's today for you mainly?
Well, yeah, today is just keeping tabs on guys officially going in the portal and where their first visits are going to be. You know, and there's still some interesting portal stuff like Sam Levit, the Arizona State quarterback, just officially went in, and he went in with a do not contact tag, which typically resembles that a player has a decent idea where they're going to want to attend school. So yeah, that's what we're tracking right now. The other interesting caveat of all of this is that all these schools start second semester classes here sooner rather than later. So guys are not going to have exactly 6 weeks to make a decision. And it's going to be pretty fast once things start flying around.
All right. Yeah. And this show is going to move fast as well. We got expert Steve Wiltfong waiting in the wings. And then we're going to get on a few of our team site insiders, including LSU, Georgia, Miami, Michigan, Auburn, and more. So now that we got Pete, because Pete can't sit here all day, he's got work to do. So let's get into it, Pete. Last year, quarterbacks were the top end quarterback was bringing in what, $2 to $4 million per year.
Yeah, and I'd say the market's still there.
Is that market very similar? If you're looking to bring in a top end starter in the quarterback at the quarterback position, you're looking to spend what?
You're looking to spend anywhere from like $1 to $4 million. You know, these really elite level guys like a Brendan Sorsby, maybe a Josh Hoover, guys like that. They could push upwards of $4 million. But there's a difference between where the market's at and then what quarterbacks are demanding.
Okay. We're going to get into the quarterback updates in a second, but I think we got to start with maybe the biggest news right now.
Sure.
Auburn wide receiver transfer Cam Coleman. He is setting up a visit with another SEC powerhouse. You wrote a story on it this morning. Give us the latest.
Yeah, Texas is working hard to get Cam Coleman on campus here in the next 72 hours. We'll see if it all comes together the way Texas is working right now. Other schools to monitor in this one are Texas A&M and USC and possibly Alabama.
Yeah, he was committed to Texas A&M, but I believe that was under Jimbo Fisher at one point. And he's from the state of Alabama, so it looks like the market that he had as a high school recruit is kind of still there as a transfer. So Cam Coleman, do you expect this to take very long, or are we going to hear something by the end of this weekend?
You know, Cam Coleman's a recent transfer portal addition, right? He made the announcement in this past week that he's going to go in the portal. I would tell you that I at this exact moment, I'm expecting him to take a couple visits and we'll see how things play out from there.
Okay, great. We'll continue to track that one. Now let's move on to Arizona State quarterback Sam Levit. You said that he entered the portal today with a non-contact on him, which means he likely has a destination in mind. We've seen this play out before in transfer portal recruitment. So where do you think Sam Levit's headed?
Yeah, you know, there's been 3 to 4 schools continually brought up with Sam Levit. You're looking at Miami, Oregon, LSU are really the 3 that you continue to hear about. There's been some buzz about Indiana, but it sounds like Indiana is going in a different direction when it comes to the quarterback market.
All right, let's move on to UF quarterback DJ Lagway. This is a really interesting one because 2 years ago when he came out, he was Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Texas. He was the consensus number one quarterback by every recruiting ranking at the time.
Yeah.
But it seems like right now he's not in that upper tier. Maybe he's not in the top 5 quarterbacks available in the transfer portal, would you say? But there is a big market for him.
There's a good market for DJ Lagway. The one thing I'd emphasize here, though, with DJ Lagway is he is going to take in the market and see how the early dominoes start to shuffle out and fall. And then I think that's really when he's going to make a decision. So you've heard LSU, you've heard Baylor, you've heard some Miami. I think all those options are real, but at the same time, I from the conversations I've had, I know that DJ Lagway is really going to see where some of these really top guys are going to go before he makes a decision.
Okay, so as DJ Lagway looks for a school, so does his former team. They're looking for a quarterback now. All signs point to Aaron Philo, the Georgia Tech backup quarterback, has entered the portal. Is that the domino that you expect to fall for the 40 Gators? Or are they looking at anybody else?
Yeah, on 3, Steve Wiltfong and I logged a prediction this morning for Aaron Philo to land with the Gators, and everything's tracking in that direction.
Okay, another big name on the market, Nebraska quarterback, Dylan Riola. What is the latest on him?
Yeah, I think Dylan Riola and DJ Lagway kind of fall into the same category where they're really starting to see and wait to see where some dominoes fall, and then we'll go from there. There's been a number of schools tied to Dylan Riola. I know some have tied him to Oregon. I think it's a little premature to put any school next to Dylan Raiola's name just at this exact moment.
All right, now we're talking Auburn quarterback, another 5-star quarterback in the portal after just one season. Auburn quarterback Deuce Knight, is he going to stay in the South?
We will see. The 2 early schools to watch in that one are Ole Miss, where he has some ties and was a big factor in his recruitment. And then you also have Boston College, where some former Auburn staffers are now at, and he has some close ties to.
Okay, so if Auburn loses quarterback Deuce Knight, they are obviously in the market for a quarterback, and all signs have been pointing to USF quarterback Byron Brown. He had a very successful campaign under Alex Golish at USF. Is this a no-brainer here? Is Byron Brown going to be an Auburn Tiger?
Yeah, as of like 10 minutes ago when I joined the show, Byron Brown still hadn't popped in the portal. I'd say Auburn is 100% the school to watch. I'd also tell you, too, that if a school like Texas Tech doesn't land Brendan Sorsby, right, if things don't shuffle out the way that Texas Tech wants, I'd tell you that Byron Brown is a name to watch. Okay, and we're going to get to him in a second. Now let's talk about Iowa State quarterback Rocco Beck. Did he go in with a non-contact? Because to me, all signs point to Penn State here. Yeah, I'm looking at Penn State to land Rocco Beck. I logged a prediction this morning and fully expect that to happen.
All right, now let's wrap up quarterback talk with Cincy quarterback Brendan Sorsby. This one, when we heard he was entering the portal, all signs pointed to Texas Tech, but is that such a sure thing at this point?
There's definitely been a battle for Brendan Sorsby. I tell you that LSU is 100% entered the mix, but Texas Tech has some confidence that they can close it out. I tell you that the next 72 hours are really going to be critical to wherever Brendan Sorsby lands.
All right. So Pete Nakos, he's going to head back to his desk. He's going to keep cranking out articles, but hold on. When do you think, when the first quarterback, one of the first big names, whether it's Lagway, whether it's Levit, whether it's Byron Brown, once one of these guys comes off the board, could we see a run on quarterbacks? Could the dominoes start falling quickly?
Yeah. 100%. It's just a matter of when that first domino falls.
Is there a first domino this year? It doesn't seem to me like there's a clear-cut number one domino like there was maybe last year or the years prior with the Cam Ward, with the Darian Mensah, with John Mateer. It just doesn't seem like, is Sam Levit that guy?
I'd say Sam Levit and Brendan Sorsby are that guys. And then now the other one, too, is Drew Messmaker, who we didn't talk about, the North Texas quarterback. I logged a prediction for him to go to Oklahoma State and follow Eric Morris to Stillwater.
All right, Pete. Well, continue your great work, and thanks for dropping in. We are going to transition this one. We're going to bring JD Piquel in to ride shotgun with me. You guys are very familiar with JD, but we're going to get to our team site guys in a minute. We're going to start with Miami, but first I want to bring in national analyst Steve Wiltfong. Steve has also been working the phones along with Pete Nakos on our national desk when it comes to the transfer portal. And Steve has some interesting intel. We'll start with Texas, a little Texas talk here with Steve Wiltfong. We hit on Cam Coleman. JD's getting seatbelted into the ride over here. We talked a little Cam Coleman with Texas, but they're also making a move on another playmaker on the offensive side of the ball. Tell us about it.
Yeah, good morning, boys. Top running back in the transfer portal per the On3 rankings, Isaac Brown from Louisville, dynamic playmaker. Texas is a program immediately emerging for his services. In Texas, they're going to have a chance to be the preseason number one and the early favorite to win the national championship. Adding a playmaker like Isaac Brown, who had some big games for the Louisville Cardinals, would be a massive piece for them.
Steve, Cam Coleman, we kind of hit on his recruitment a little bit when Pete was on. How big of a player is Texas A&M? Because I know Mike Elko didn't specifically recruit him. He was committed to Jimbo Fisher while he was there.
Well, initially, it sounds like they're the biggest competitor to the Longhorns for Cam Coleman. He had a lot of comfort level with Texas A&M family in the Houston area. Obviously, at one point was committed to that program and has a great relationship with wide receivers coach Holman Wiggins over there. So there's some built-in relationships and trust as Texas A&M. We know that they're going to be heavy in the portal this cycle as they look to build on a season that saw them make the college football playoff and compete in the SEC. I think we could see Texas A&M also be a player for top offensive tackles and pass rushers as we continue through this cycle.
JD, what do you think about Texas potentially adding a Cam Coleman to the mix? Great compliment to a Ryan Wingo, who to me isn't maybe necessarily that true number one, but could be a great compliment to a guy like Cam Coleman.
I think the plan going into the year was for him to be the number one guy because you saw him flash as a true freshman. There's the speed, and then this year went how it went.
But I think reality is
1,000%. I think Parker Livingston was actually the guy that you got excited about if you're a Texas fan, and then announces that he intends to enter the transfer portal. So the way that it feels to me, Josh, with Cam Coleman in Texas, really curious to track the intel here with Pete and Steve as this thing progresses. But doesn't it just kind of feel like it's time for Steve Sarkisian to get his look back at the wide receiver position? Like, I'm used to Texas having Worthy and Mitchell.
You thought Jonte Cook. You thought Jonte Cook and Ryan Wingo were going to be that pair.
Absolutely.
Didn't really work out that way, which is okay. You have the transfer portal. Steve saying Cam Coleman could very well end up there. You see running back Isaac Brown. Now, Steve, another team that really needs playmakers, much like we were just talking about, is Michigan. Michigan looking for a major upgrade at the wide receiver position. Tell us about it.
Well, I think that's obviously a huge point of emphasis for the Wolverines this portal cycle. They have the pieces at the quarterback position, Bryce Underwood in the running back room, and you like what they bring back on the offensive line and at tight end. If there's a need for any program in the country this cycle, Michigan's need at receiver is as big as any program in America. They tried to address it in the portal cycle last year, landing guys like Donovan McCulley, but they're going to need to hit bigger than that to achieve what they want to achieve next fall, which is competing for a national championship. Nick Marsh is a guy that would immediately make sense, former Michigan State receiver in the portal, number 3 player in America at the position in the On3 rankings, but there's more buzz per Pete Nakos right now around Notre Dame and LSU. Now, Nick Marsh had some interest in Notre Dame as he went through his process. And LSU, they're going to be a contender for receivers across the board. They're also looking for playmakers on the perimeter. As Lane Kiffin's already telling high school recruits to pay attention, we're going to light up the scoreboard and stuff the stat sheet this coming fall. Another name for LSU to kind of keep an eye on is Eugene Hilton Jr., the son of T.Y. Hilton, was a true freshman at Wisconsin this year. So LSU in the middle of it all for these top receivers, and we'll see who comes to the forefront for Michigan.
All right. Michigan, McCulley, he wasn't a miss for Michigan. They just need like 3 more of him.
The thing is, it felt like this year, Bryce Underwood is the future of Michigan football. Donovan McCulley is also in some way, shape, or form resembling what that future is. Bryce Underwood. But like you said, there wasn't enough pieces to even know what you truly had in Bryce Underwood because your other best receiver was a freshman in Andrew Marsh. So still kind of evolving out there very much so in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, and like Steve said, they need playmakers at tight end. They need them at wide receiver. They probably could use – they got Savion Hyder coming in, but you could probably use another one at running back as well.
Anyone with some juice and some explosivity, I think Michigan will take you very gladly. Yeah. I think they'll be happy about that.
All right, Steve. I like – I don't know if I should say I like, but it's always intriguing when one of these recruits that we covered out of high school is now in the portal. Let's talk about Minnesota safety Coy Parrish, because when he committed to Minnesota, mind-blowing win. I mean, legitimate offers from Ohio State amongst others, but it was really Ohio State in there. And could he end up in Columbus?
I don't think so. Talking to some sources this morning, I don't expect him to be on Ohio State's board, and I also don't expect him to be on Oregon's board. I know his representation told Pete Nakos a top 10 program is his likely destination, so we'll see what happens with Coy Parrish moving forward. Ohio State would have been the immediate assumption, and then Oregon is another program that certainly was one that we thought of right away, but I don't think he's going to end up at Ohio State or Oregon right now. Josh, JD, some intel quickly coming in on one of the top players in the transfer portal right now. Number 1 edge rusher, number 2 player overall, Chaz Coleman from Penn State, an Ohio native. The Buckeyes were the first program that Pete Nakos mentioned, and they're in strong talks with the Chaz Coleman camp early in this transfer portal cycle. But sounds like it's LSU and Tennessee that are the programs emerging as the price tag continues to go up for Chaz Coleman in the initial discussions for his signature and opportunity.
Yeah. So when I saw Chaz Coleman's name in there, because he had such a great year at Penn State, I mean, I thought Virginia Tech immediately, but I imagine there's going to be a huge market for the top edge rusher in America.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, looks like LSU and Tennessee are the programs that have presented the best fiscal opportunity right now as the arrow continues to go up on Chaz Coleman, but Ohio State remains in the picture for the Buckeye State native.
All right, Steve, I got one more for you before we let you get back to work. And we talked Dylan Riola with Pete Nakos when he was on. And we talked about where Riola might end up, but Nebraska is also in the market for a quarterback, and you have some intel on who could fill that need?
Well, this morning, Pete Nakos and I predicted Nebraska to ultimately land former Notre Dame quarterback Kenny Minchey. I was told this morning that Minchey is expected to visit Nebraska early next week, went into the transfer portal with a do not contact tag as well. And Kenny Minchey is someone that pushed CJ Carr all the way through fall camp to start at Notre Dame. And there's people that believe that he would have had a similar type season under center for the Irish than CJ Carr's breakout year under the Golden Dome. And this is a very talented quarterback that was at one point committed to Pitt. Notre Dame flipped him late in the process. He was an Elite 11 finalist that won the accuracy award at the competition. He can make all the throws, had a tremendous junior year in the state of Tennessee, was banged up a little bit as a senior, came to Notre Dame, was a great teammate again, really pushed CJ Carr, and someone that would be a tremendous pickup for Nebraska from a talent standpoint, and someone that can help get this program pushing forward towards the college football playoff.
Steve, I got a little overtime question for you here as this transfer portal window has been moved back from December to now early January. We've gotten a lot of like intends to enter announcements, the Nakosifications, the Hayes Foss, the On3, social accounts. Do you expect us to get some early commitments in this cycle? Because it feels like there's probably been back channel communication. How quickly do you expect the dominoes to fall with some of these top guys?
I think you're seeing prospects on the road for visits right now, January 2nd, January 3rd. And oftentimes in the transfer portal cycle, guys commit to the first program they visit. They may even say, hey, I got a second and third visit coming. But that first visit in the transfer portal cycle is very important. It's actually the opposite compared to high school football recruiting, where sometimes you want the last visit. That first visit in the transfer portal cycle, a 2-week window, get them on campus, show them your program, talk money, get it done. So I think we're going to start seeing some fast commitments, maybe not today, but Saturday and Sunday from prospects that are taking their initial visits.
Yeah, great stuff, Steve. We appreciate the help, and we are going to keep this show moving. We're going to talk Miami here in a second, but I like that question because I do think the biggest thing in the last 4 or 5 years that I've seen from covering the portal is that it is completely opposite from high school recruiting, where these guys like to schedule their 5 visits. They like to take all 5 of those visits and then make, an informed decision after their visit trips are done. Whereas in the portal, I think we've seen a lot of these guys take 1 trip, cancel the rest, and just that's it.
And how long have some of these guys been talking to other schools too? Maybe not them specifically, but hey, my agent talked to the 7-on-7 coach, talked to so-and-so. It's like, we kind of know the hat's on the table for proverbially before we even get the intent to enter announcement. So really curious to see, again, just how quickly some of these guys come off the board. And the musical chairs, the quarterback position.
I don't think
going to be fun. Going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. I don't think any of the names that we're talking on this show have entered the portal just willy-nilly.
No, never willy-nilly.
I think every single name that we've talked about knows their market before they've announced that they've entered the portal. Today's the first day you can actually enter the portal. But I think that 99% of these guys know who's interested well before they're hitting the portal. So that's why I agree with you. I think that the process is a little inverted compared to the high school process.
You would assume too there's conversations going on with the current school of like, hey, school X is going to offer me this. If I do jump in the portal, can you match that? No, you can't. Okay, well, I'm going to probably enter the portal then, and I'll see you on the other sideline next fall.
Yeah. All right. Let's start our team segment with one of the best recruiting portal teams in America, the Miami Hurricanes. Let's bring in Gary Furman, Cane Sport. Gary, the Canes have a little problem that I think a lot of teams would like to have right now. They're still playing football. How are they handling the transfer portal?
You're not kidding, man. It is chaotic for us at Cane Sport, I will tell you that. But it's easy for you to say that when they're in the semifinals, of course. But you are right. Miami has been one of the best in the country at handling this new modern day system of college football. And they're not going to be overwhelmed by what they're dealing with this weekend. But it is a lot. And there's a lot on their plate. You got preparations for the Fiesta Bowl going on. You've got players leaving that you maybe didn't even know were going to leave. I mean, there were players that flew back from the Cotton Bowl, Chance Robinson, for example, who landed and immediately declared himself headed to the portal. Well, my question is, well, what the heck were you doing in Dallas? But that's a whole nother issue. But this is a very chaotic time, probably an unprecedented time in college football with the way this is all playing out. So Miami's beginning preparations to go to Phoenix at the beginning of the week. And they are now heavily engaged in the portal. And we are going to be covering portal visits this weekend for sure. And they aren't messing around. Okay. They are leaving town. They don't have time to play games. I think that they're going to focus in very quickly on who they're interested in talking to. And I think quarterback absolutely has to be at the top of that list. And I'm expecting things to happen very quickly this weekend, just like you guys have been talking about so far in this show. Sam Levit has been buzzed to Miami for several weeks now. I'm not falling for that one, guys. I'm really not. I think Miami is locked and loaded here. They have gone whale hunting the last couple of years very successfully. And I refuse to believe that they are not going to be very much in the mix for Brendan Sorsby very quickly here in the next 24 hours or so. And I think that's got to be the number one target on their board. I mean, you have in today's world, you're looking at a situation at Miami where you are now in the semifinals. You have built all this momentum over 4 years. The school has invested in the program. They're getting believe this or not, guys, they are getting a return on investment right now.
Yes, they are.
Miami's the meter is already at about 14 million in the postseason for the Hurricanes, and the ACC. Thank you, Clemson. Thank you, FSU. Has a system in place now where all that money goes to the school that's advancing. And so Miami's getting a big fat check coming in here. And, I'm sure they're going to want to put a little bit back in the university kitty, but they are going to be able to afford to go look for a quarterback. You got Beck coming off the books. You got Maui Noah coming off the books. You got some big numbers coming off the NIL books here going into this cycle. And you also have a roster that is much better built than it has been really in more than 2 decades. Okay, let's be honest. And so they can be selective on who they go after. They can go after the best. They will have the money to do it. And we are very closely monitoring this Sorsby situation at Cane Sport, because I'm not buying that Levit is necessarily going to be the guy. I think he's there. I think there have been conversations there, but I think Miami is going to shoot for the top guy. I personally believe that is Sorsby, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's just a very interesting time.
Hey, the schedule is what it is. Miami's still rolling, and they're also out looking for their next quarterback. It's crazy, but this is just how they got to do it. And Mario has built a great recruiting staff that can take a lot of this off his plate.
Yep.
We've talked a lot, not necessarily about Miami, but there's a lot of talk about retention. You see a lot about guys re-signing, these announcements that are coming. Oh, we must re-sign this guy. Is it helping Miami with player retention that they're playing right now? I mean, of course you got a guy like a Chance Robinson, but let's be honest, Chance Robinson isn't a vital cog to what Miami has going on right now. Whereas we're seeing a ton of big names hitting the portal, but is Miami's run in the playoffs kind of preventing that?
No, I don't think there's a direct impact there. I think that the quality way that Miami's running their program now is impacting that. You know, you had the last month to essentially work on your roster, looking forward to next year, and handle a lot of those negotiations. And I think what you do in today's world is you focus on your top 25, 30 guys, and you make sure you've got them locked in and committed going into the next season. And I think they've pretty successfully done that. I mean, they've got 6 names now in the portal. I think there'll be a few more that will jump in there. But none of these are guys that are critical to 2026. And they're really doing a fantastic job at Miami of managing this element of the program. Mario's just all over this thing. And, I give him a lot of credit, quite honestly. He's a traditional recruiter. It wasn't too many years back that we were looking at Mario Cristobal as maybe the best head coaching recruiter in the country. I mean, his last year at Oregon, I think he signed the top player guys in 9 different states. Okay. Well, it's not so easy to do that anymore. It's a bidding war now for a lot of these top players, and you've got to be really smart about how you manage your money and who you commit dollars to. And so I think that they've already done this at Miami. I think the bulk of the guys that are difference makers for 2026 have been locked in and are committed for next year. And I think now they know where they stand with the portal opening up, and they can go target other guys around the country that can add to this roster. And if you look at what they did last year in this situation, I mean, it was unbelievable. And it's why they're in the semifinals this year. Some of even the second portal window signees that they were able to find are some of the better players on this defense. And it's made a huge difference.
Gary, I don't know if anybody else in sports media has it better than you with your team being a game away from playing for a national championship, and you woke up in a state that's probably like 80 degrees in the month of January. Going back to the quarterback carousel, though, let's just go ahead and play the hypothetical. It's not Sam Levit, and let's say it's not Brennan Sorsby. Is there somebody else on the wish list or someone else to watch in this whole Hurricane quarterback target?
There could be. But if there is, we don't know about it right now. Here's the thing, JD. Miami's probably going to have, I'm guessing, somewhere around $40 million invested in the 2026 football team between the revenue sharing, which is, I think, landing at about $15 million, and then what they will supplement that with NIL. And that's standard. Like, this is not Miami outspending anybody. I mean, you look at Texas, Georgia, Alabama, all these programs are all going to be spending in that ballpark. And but if you're spending that kind of money on your roster, it would be absolute malpractice to not make sure that you have a top shelf quarterback to go with all these other guys that you're, locking in, pretty good contracts with. So I don't see Miami doing anything but shoot for the top here. I think they're positioned to do it. They got a really good roster coming back. They should be a top 5, certainly top 10 team going to the next season. If they get the right quarterback, you might even see them as a preseason number 1 or 2. I mean, quite honestly, if this run here continues in the playoffs. And I think they're going to be shooting for the top here at quarterback. And, it's funny because, I think it ruffles some feathers of the younger quarterbacks that you've recruited, and that that every year you're going in whale hunting for a top quarterback. But, my response to that is, listen, these young guys, the onus is on them. It's like nobody wants to commit this type of money to a quarterback if they don't have to. You could buy a lot of players for $4 million. But you have to make sure you have it. And if you're a young quarterback, you have to get good enough to where your school does not have the impulse to go into the portal and buy somebody else, because otherwise it's just going to keep perpetuating itself year after year.
All right. Well, these are exciting times down in Coral Gables, and it could get exciting this weekend when it comes to the transfer portal. Gary Furman, Kane Sport, it is the place to be. Updates are rolling all weekend long. It's a celebration on the message boards as well. What a fun time over on Kane Sport. Gary Furman, thanks for joining us today on this transfer portal special.
Anytime, guys.
All right. There it is. Miami just knocking it out of the park, not only at quarterback, but I also think they've sprinkled in some really quality wide receivers along the way too. Not overdoing it in the portal. I feel like the core of their class or the core of their roster is really made up from high school recruiting.
Yeah, I think you give them a lot of credit too for the defensive side. How
Right.
they've retooled that. I mean, a year ago, that was really what kept Miami out of the college football playoff with Cam Ward, who was arguably the best Miami quarterback in history in terms of just like a one season sample size. So the way they retooled that back end, big reason why they're playing in the semifinals here in a game away from a natty.
I mean, just look at the core of the team, whether it be Mark Fletcher, Maui Noah, Ruben Bain, Wesley Bassane. These are all guys that they won big time high school recruiting battles for. So as we sit here and talk transfer portal when it comes to Miami, just remember that really the core of their team is made up from the high school level. So really impressive job, the way that they've accented the roster with just unbelievable portal additions. So we are going to keep it rolling, but Miami fans, talk to us. Who do you want to see Miami land at quarterback? Who do you think is the future of the quarterback position for the Hurricanes? Let us know, comment section below. Let's move on and talk Auburn. We got Cole Pinkston from Auburn Sports. He is here. He is posted up at Auburn headquarters. Cole, what would you say is the biggest need right now for the Auburn Tigers under Alex Golish?
Well, you could list a ton of positions right now, because if you're paying attention to Auburn at all, man, it is a mass exodus here. They are going to have to get 30, 35-ish players out of the portal. They're looking at maybe bringing some guys back that are in the portal. I would say quarterback and offensive line. You could even go defensive line. Those are the three hot spots, I would say. Quarterback, Byron Brown is where you start with that. South Florida transfer. Does he follow Alex Golish? I'm leaning towards he does right now. Byron Brown, 3,000 yards passing, 1,000 yards rushing this past year. Fits in the offense, obviously, knows the offense. Makes a lot of sense to me with Byron Brown there.
Outside of Cam Coleman, is there anybody that Auburn would like to bring back? I mean, we've seen a little bit of this so far in the transfer portal. Some guys testing the waters only to announce that they're going to return. Is there anybody? I mean, it's a coaching change, so this could, it's not just a one-way street here, but is there anybody Auburn could bring back?
There's a few guys they're working on, Josh. I'm not sure yet if they're going to be able to do it.
Right.
Cam Coleman, he's going to make some money somewhere.
Yeah.
Deuce Knight, he's going to make some money somewhere. So, it's going to be tough to compete and bring that back while you're also trying to build your roster. You got to remember that part of it. 30 to plus guys, we think. So maybe a Malik Blockton, a defensive lineman, is a guy they would talk to again and try to get him back and keep conversation ongoing there. Dylan Senda is an offensive lineman that hasn't played much, but heard his name as somebody they really liked and could see them try to bring him back. DeAndre Carter is another guy that was from California, been on the roster for a little while, but has been in the two deep that they could try to bring back. I mean, Auburn has 4 scholarship offensive linemen right now, so I think that's a place you could see them work to try to get somebody back.
All right. Well, Byron Brown, we're all penciling him in, but does Auburn need to bring in multiple quarterbacks? I mean, could they just get by with Brown, or do they need to bring in a handful here?
Well, if Byron Brown does commit to Auburn in the coming week, he will be the only quarterback technically on roster besides incoming freshman Reese Brush. So, yes, they're going to have to go multiple quarterbacks. Still looking at some names on who else could be there, but I think priority number 1 is get Brown in and work from there. We'll see what happens in the coming weeks as far as that goes. But they've got to get 2 or 3 quarterbacks from the portal.
Cole, it's kind of a funny question, but with how we're all assuming Byron Brown ends up at Auburn, What is the temperature of the fan base when it comes to receiving him as their quarterback? Because in some respects, you say, well, hey, JD went to Jackson Arnold. Hey, we got Peyton Thorne the year before. 2 Power 4 quarterbacks didn't work out. Now we're going to go get a G5 guy who's never played a down at the Power 4 level, much less the SEC. What's the vibe there in terms of Byron Brown potentially being QB1 next year on the Plains?
I think there's a lot of optimism. Number one, there's proof of concept when you look at Alex Golesh and what he's done not only with the quarterback position, but with Byron Brown over the last 3 years. And this past season, being 3,000 yards passing, 1,000 yards rushing, that's a lot. It's only been done a few times, I think like 12 times in college football history or something.
Pretty
like
good.
That.
It's all right.
Pretty good. Yeah, you know, it's a good starting point, I guess, right? I feel like the fan base would be highly excited about Byron Brown. He's physical. He sort of reminds you of some of the running quarterbacks Auburn's had in the past. You know, he knows the offense. I think that's a big deal. You've seen guys come in and they've had to sort of work all offseason, try to get the offense right. It's a new offense. It's going to be totally different from what we've seen based on what I've studied of it and based on what I've watched of it. So I think it's pretty exciting for Auburn fans for the potential of Byron Brown and how athletic he is. And he's a pretty good passer as well. And he knows what's going on. He seems to know the program with what they do, with what Alex Golesh does.
Yeah. And Cole, you know, you said that there's about 30 departures. Well, there's going to be 30 additions as well. I mean, the tide goes out, the tide comes back in. So is Auburn in a position to sign top players? Because to me, it seems like a lot of money came off the books between the Jackson Arnold and the other quarterbacks, and then Cam Coleman, some offensive linemen. I mean, it feels to me like Auburn should have some spending power.
I think Auburn does. I think Auburn has spending power, you know, on any given day. But like you said, I think they've added it with this portal cycle. I think one of the things that Alex Golesh and his staff wanted to do was sort of restructure the way NIL was being given out at Auburn. That seems like it was a very big point of emphasis when he walked in the door, especially when he's having the meetings with the guys that are in and out, you know, going to the portal or staying. So I think, you know, people might look at that and go, well, they're not going to spend as much as the previous staff. But I think actually what it is they just have a different value system. And if they value somebody in the portal, they're going to spend the money on those guys. And I think they have it to spend. I mean, you have the Baylor game that's moved to Atlanta, and they get like $4 million off of that deal that's going to help out with the portal. It's just I think they got a lot of money to spend. We'll see how they spend it. You know, how they value players. I'm still learning about that with this staff, but
yeah,
it's going to be exciting here. I'm telling you.
Yeah, absolutely. Going to hit the ground running for Alex Golesh and his staff. Cole Pinkston, Auburn Sports. You guys are going to have updates all day long, all weekend long, all portal long. It's 2 weeks. It's 15 days. So Cole, just the beginning of what is going to be a busy window for you guys. Thanks for dropping by this portal special.
Appreciate y'all guys having me.
All right, there it is, man. Yeah, Auburn has some money coming off the books, and they were always perennial big-time spenders. So even though it feels like, and I'm sure Auburn fans, it's heartbreaking to see a guy like a Deuce Knight, a guy like a Cam Coleman, some of these huge recruiting wins that went down not even 2 years ago. I mean, Deuce Knight was last year. I'm sure it's heartbreaking, but on the flip side, Alex Golesh knows what he's doing. He built USF that was in a really bad shape when he took it over. So I think these are exciting times on the Plains.
I think the confidence has to be too. The problem for Auburn has never really been at a roster level. Like there's been holes to some degree and things you'd like to have more tuned up, but I don't think these last couple of years, Josh, we've walked into a season and been like, man, if Auburn was just more talented, they'd have more success. Like had a 4- or 5-star at quarterback, you had a 5-star wide receiver, and it hasn't gone that way. So I think being a little bit more efficient in terms of how they put this roster together when it comes to complementary gets and maybe playing a different brand of football, just winning the moments for Auburn here is going to be the biggest thing. So whether it's a guy with a bunch of stars next to his name or a guy that Alex Golesh just believes in from his time at USF and they won Byron Brown, It's going to be a different way to put it together, but I think that's probably the way to go here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a similar situation to kind of like what we're seeing at Penn State with Matt Campbell. If he can bring in Rocco Back, you bring in a guy that you're familiar with for one season. Byron Brown comes in. You know, he had a great campaign under Alex Golish during his time at USF. You try to replicate that at your new stop. If they can win 8 to 10 games, you can put something out there that shows this is the place to be. And you can start recruiting. Maybe, you know, you can start back to back in those top quarterbacks like Miami has.
Yeah.
Like other programs have. So we'll see what happens, but Auburn's going to be a really interesting watch. And so will Michigan. Let's bring in EJ Holland of the Wolverine, and Kyle Whittingham is in place just in time. What do you think the biggest need is for Kyle Whittingham? Because he has a great piece to build around. You got Bryce Underwood. You got the piece there that's going to take you. What do they need to put around him?
First of all, they need to make sure that Bryce Underwood stays, right? So Kyle Whittingham had a
It
long
sounds to me like he is. I mean, the statement that he put out sounded to me like he's locked in. Do you think otherwise?
I'm putting it out there, Josh, just in case. But, you know, he had a long meeting with Kyle Whittingham, and you know, I still think there's a little bit of speculation with the coaching change. So just putting it out there, but I'm not necessarily worried right now about Bryce Underwood. Just saying, you know, that is you can never rule it out, I would say. So priority number one is roster retention for Kyle Whittingham before we even talk about potential additions.
Right.
It starts with Bryce Underwood. That's why he had a lengthy one-on-one meeting with Bryce Underwood. Then, you know, like you said, you need to get wide receivers around Bryce Underwood. They have a star freshman, Andrew Marsh. He's another guy we're tracking. You know, is he going to stay? They need to retain Andrew Marsh. There's a lot of buzz that he could hop into the portal. So they need to keep Andrew Marsh. You know, those are probably the two big ones, obviously, they need to keep. Yeah. They would love to keep Justice Haynes, who had a fantastic season at running back for the Wolverines, but you know, that one's going to be a little tough there. So roster retention, priority number one. Priority number two, you retain Bryce Underwood. Whether you lose Marsh or not, you still need wide receiver help. So will Michigan spend at wide receiver? I'm not sure. You know, I do think they should, but it's hard to tell right now if they're going to spend the big bucks for a Cam Coleman or a TJ Moore, a former 5-star. I think they should. I think if they lose Andrew Marsh, that frees up quite a bit of room, but we don't even know who's going to be the GM right now at Michigan. You know, is it still going to be Sean McGee? Is Kyle Whittingham going to bring in a new GM? Historically, Michigan has budgeted a bit in the portal. They have spent, you know, some on the recruiting trail as well. Obviously, they gave Bryce Underwood a lot of money. Last year, they spent pretty heavily for Justice Haynes. Will they spend that amount to get a TJ Moore or a Cam Coleman to come in despite, you know, and I know they have a new staff, but I think in wide receivers' minds right now, they still see Michigan as a team that isn't necessarily the most pass friendly. So will the new staff be more appealing? Will they spend for that elite wide receiver? As of right now, you know, we're still kind of tracking and seeing what targets really pop up. You know, Pete Nakos mentioned Terrell Anderson earlier today, the NC State transfer. And I checked in with a source close to him, and he told me, you know, Miami, LSU, Tennessee are in better spots right now. So they just hired a wide receiver coach yesterday in Micah Simon. I mean, Michigan doesn't have a full staff yet. So I think they're going to have to settle in quickly and really, really hit the ground running.
EJ, you mentioned why potential wide receivers may be a little bit leery about choosing Michigan. But if I'm a Michigan fan, I'm hearing you say they may not be willing to spend the big bucks to go get some top targets at wide receiver. I'm like, why the heck not? We've paid a bunch of money for Bryce Underwood. Why will we not go get the complete set and have a passing game there? What's the thought process there when it comes to Michigan? Maybe not be willing to shell out a few bucks to go get some elite transfer portal talent.
You know what, JD? I think that's a great question. I think that's been a question that's been really frustrating fans because you haven't seen Michigan historically invest in the wide receiver position, even on the recruiting trail. You look right now at their class. Travis Johnson, great land. They put together a strong NIL package for him, but he's not necessarily, you know, a bona fide 5-star guy or even a top 100 guy by any service. So Michigan hasn't landed a stud. They haven't spent the dollars historically on a stud wide receiver, you know, on the high school side or in the portal. You didn't see them do it last year either, even after landing Bryce Underwood. So I think it's more of a let's see it to believe it situation, right? Like I said, I think they should. I think they will. But a lot is dependent on, do they keep this same budget, you know, NFL salary cap model style that they've done with Sean McGee? Do they bring in somebody new? Do they keep McGee? Do they reassign McGee? There's still a lot of moving parts as Michigan still fills out this staff and fills out the GM position as well.
All right. Well, what about on the defensive side of the ball? Any major needs there?
Yeah, I think with, you know, bringing in a new staff, bringing in a new DC, Jay Hill, who was announced from BYU, they're going to target some guys that he was familiar with. John Henry Daly, a defensive end at Utah, hit the portal. He's probably the biggest known target as of today for Michigan. So, you know, he'll be definitely one to watch. Smith Snowden just entered the portal out of Utah, and Michigan could look for more help in the secondary. I'm expecting Michigan to make a run there. So I think with the Wolverines staff just settling in, I mean, most of these hires were announced yesterday.
Yeah.
I think we're still kind of gathering more information on who exactly Michigan will make a priority in the portal. And, you know, you've already seen some guys jump in for Michigan too. A big one, Cole Sullivan at linebacker. They would love to get him back, but if Cole Sullivan goes elsewhere, then linebacker will be a big need for the Wolverines as well.
All right, before I let you go, what's going on with Malachi Lee? He was one of the top offensive tackles signed in Michigan's 2026 class. When Sharon Moore got dismissed, he was kind of up in the air. His dad did a couple interviews. Now the latest is he remains committed, but he says he will not be an early enrollee. I don't know if that's news to you or if you were expecting that. And does the news that he will, you know, have the chance to sign in February, does it affect his recruitment at all?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting note. You know, he put out an update on his Instagram, and Malachi Lee is not a big talker. I will say he does have a pre-existing relationship with new offensive line coach Jim Harding, and that's, you know, obviously huge for Michigan to have that. Both Harding and Kyle Whittingham went out to Hawaii to meet with Malachi Lee early in the process. The early enrollment part was definitely a surprise. We were fully expecting him to enroll early. That potentially gives other, you know, it gives other teams a chance, I guess, to maybe make a move for him there. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting situation, but, you know, like he said in his Instagram post, he is fully committed to Michigan. So it may be a situation where, you know, it could be something like a credit or just a family situation. I think the positive side of that is he did say that he's fully locked in with Michigan. You know, and to bounce off of that, Josh, you know, Michigan could look at some guys that are committed to Utah that have enrolled that could hop in the portal. Yeah. Kelvin Obot, a 5-star offensive tackle, he's already enrolled at Utah. He could hop in the portal. I covered Brew McCoy several cycles back. He enrolled at USC, and then he transferred to Texas like a few weeks later. You could see potentially a situation like that with a Kelvin Obot, just because he is familiar with Jim Harding. Or I've been covering Salisi Moa quite a bit. His uncle, Lewis Powell, is the new defensive ends coach at Michigan. That could be, you know, something to really watch. So, you know, out of the Utah class, if you're looking at potential portal entries of guys that just enrolled, Salisi Moa and Kelvin Obot are definitely worth watching closely.
Yeah. Back in my day, we watched Julian Sayin put on the Alabama jersey in practice as they prep for a bowl, only to transfer to Ohio State about a week later. So, yeah, none of that stuff is off the table when it comes to the transfer portal. EJ Holland, the Wolverine, it's going to be exciting. There's going to be some big time signings in Ann Arbor. We're going to follow it all. EJ, thanks for stopping by this transfer portal special.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, guys.
You would think, I mean, I know EJ's not like 100% sure that they're going to, but when you go all in on Bryce Underwood and you spend what you spent to get him, you'd think they'd be a little bit more aggressive when it came to wide receiver recruiting.
You would think so. To me, it's like, why would you go get one piece if you're not willing to have the complete set?
Yeah.
Like you already got one part of the fit. You might as well go complete it. Like Bryce Underwood, it was very obvious this year too. The dude's got a lot of juice. I mean, the physical tools are obvious, but if you don't have someone to go catch the football, it doesn't matter how far you can throw it and how many RPMs you can put on it. Like you got to have the set, in Michigan right now very obviously does not have that. Got to go spend for it.
Yeah, like if you got the Maserati, you're not putting just any old Goodyear tires on it to help it run. Like you're gonna do whatever you can to juice up that Maserati and have it at peak performance. And I feel like Michigan they have a lot of the pieces, but they just don't have explosive wide receivers. They don't have a great tight end room. They're building that running back room. So it just, to me, it seems like you'd be willing to do whatever it took, but we didn't even see it in the recruiting process. Calvin Russell, the wide receiver out of Miami Northwestern, he signs with Syracuse. Yeah, Miami wanted him as well, but so did Michigan. He ends up signing at Syracuse. I guarantee you, if they offered him something he couldn't refuse, he'd be up there being a 5-star wide receiver at Michigan next year. But that's not the direction they're headed.
I mean, Josh, all 4 of the teams left in the college football playoff, they all have a transfer portal quarterback, and they all are ball players in the portal. Miami, money's never an issue. Oregon, same deal. Indiana, they crushed the eval game. They killed the volume game. You talk about, I'm forgetting the 4th team, Ole Miss, and the way that Lane Kiffin's been the portal king there. I mean, you have to play the portal game if you want to win at the highest level, which is why this part of the year is so crucial for college football fans.
All right. Perfect segue to our next guest. We're talking LSU Tigers. We're talking Lane Kiffin. We're talking transfer portal, and we have the great Shea Dixon of the Bengal Tiger. Shea has not slept in 4 weeks since the Lane Kiffin hiring went down, and he's not about to sleep over the next 15 days as the transfer portal is open. Let's bring him in. There he is, Shea Dixon. Shea, let's start at the quarterback position. What's the buzz there around LSU?
Well, let's start here, Josh. 2 months I haven't slept because Brian Kelly got fired at the end of October. So we're rolling on that. I don't know. And 2, who to blame here. Why you bring me on right after EJ? This was 1 year ago where I had to do the Bryce Underwood stuff, and then you segue me right in. So yes, Josh, thanks for that. Quarterback market, as JD just said, LSU's new head coach is JD, I don't know if it's self-proclaimed portal king or did the onlookers give him this title. Regardless, I guess he's earned it because we're seeing what Ole Miss is doing right now. And I do not believe LSU's next quarterback is currently on this roster. Is that a bold take? No, they only have one scholarship quarterback on the roster, is Michael Van Buren. And I find it hard-pressed to believe that Kiffin, with his affinity for quarterbacks, with whom they've been in contact with behind the scenes leading up to the portal opening today, that you would ride with Van Buren, right? I mean, remember, this is a kid who went to state, injury to the starter. He starts games as a freshman, comes to LSU, heir apparent to Nuss, staff changes, Nuss sits out the final month. JD, back in your college days, if you're a type of quarterback like this, you sit down and they say, hey, compete for the job maybe, right? Or we're bringing in another portal guy. I don't blame him one bit for saying, hey, look, I'm a junior now. I've started double-digit SEC games for 2 different SEC West teams, throwback SEC West teams. And I feel like I've got some value that could put me in a starting spot. So it would leave LSU with no quarterbacks, which is why I think that Lane's going to need to find the old who's got a year of eligibility left that we can use, who has multiple years left that's okay with being a backup, and that's kind of where they're at. And boys, 2 quarterbacks have sort of emerged that are not named Trinidad Chambliss, given that the Ole Miss quarterback is sort of waiting on the waiver. You don't know what his future is. They're still playing. But it's Sam Levit at Arizona State, who Pete Nakos reported not only officially entered the portal, but has that no contact tag. So that usually means you got the teams kind of figured out already. You don't want anyone else blowing up your phone line, your agents, your parents, any of that.
So do you think that team's LSU?
I think that I'll toss this in. Brendan Sorsby is the other, and he's Cincinnati's quarterback. It's well known that his girlfriend, volleyball player, is already transferred from Cincy to Texas Tech. Nakos reported this morning that Sorsby is going to be on campus at Texas Tech on Friday today. It's LSU, Texas Tech. Everyone thought foregone conclusion. Sorsby would end up at Tech.
Gary Furman says Miami's heavily involved. He says, do not discount the Canes here for Sorsby.
And it was LSU first. So here we go. So it's clearly not just a done deal lock now. Hell, does he leave Lubbock without committing or getting on board? We don't know. I'll tell you this from kind of sources behind the scenes. Lane Kiffin's very high on Sam. Levit is one of those guys who, JD, I don't remember when it was, but he got banged up, and so he didn't finish the season. And while Kiffin is really, really, really high on him as a guy he thinks could fit the system, get it done right away, you're balancing this unknown of, does he miss spring ball? Does he miss installs? Does he miss that time you get with your receivers and everything else? And I think that's kind of one of the big question marks. And it's something that doesn't get talked about a ton in the portal, boys, is that everyone gets excited. Who's going to make a visit? Is this guy on campus? Are they in there breaking down film? A lot of the times those guys' first stop is medical. And hey, let's get a deep look at where you're at right now and what your recovery timeline looks like. And that is heightened times 10 when you're talking about a quarterback who could be your starter. So right now, LSU, don't think about DJ Lagway, Riola, any of those guys. We don't know what's happening with Chambliss. Right here into the kind of the opening 24, 48 hours, 72 hours, this first weekend, all eyes are on Levit and Sorsby.
Wow, that's interesting. What else do you think Lane Kiffin would like to add in the portal? What's the priority for not just Lane Kiffin, but also LSU fans? You're good.
Just getting locked and loaded.
Yeah, he is,
man. Just getting locked and loaded. I think it's interesting what he said about Sam Levit and the injury part of it, because if I'm an LSU fan, I'm like, we just did this with Nussmeier. We just did this thing where an injury pops up. We're not sure how he's going to be in spring ball or in fall camp, rather, is when the injury, rumor kind of started percolating, and then it becomes more of a thing during the season. So I'm really curious to hear more about how that whole thing is formulating with Sam Levit and the injury discussion as it pertains to his next stop.
And also, what's going to happen with Michael Van Buren? Because I know this sounds crazy, but I kind of like Michael Van Buren. I saw what he did at Mississippi State as a freshman. He got in and played in 4 or 5 games, and I thought he was fairly impressive as a true freshman. You saw him last. He has some tools.
Yeah.
I don't think he's the best option at quarterback, but I think he's a guy that you want to keep on the roster if you can.
I think what Shea said about him kind of being on the clock himself is really telling. He's like, hey, listen, I've got some tape here. I played at
He's got
Mississippi
experience in
level.
the SEC.
Took
right.
Georgia for 300 yards. Played at a serviceable level.
I agree.
For LSU
I agree.
This past year. So if you're LSU, you're like, we'd like to keep you. But if you're Michael Van Buren, you're like, I got to play 2 here. We got Shea back a little.
Yeah, Shea, what do you think about the Michael Van Buren situation?
I was on Do Not Disturb there, and then my alarm for coming on this show booted me out, which just shows the efficiency of JD and Josh. Y'all were moving quick, so I'm like 15 minutes ahead of schedule here. So are we still talking Levit here? Or are we talking Sorsby?
Talking Van Buren, and what level of priority is it to keep him around, or is there any level of priority to keep him around?
Van Buren has said publicly, I want to stay here. I want to compete for the job. Did he do anything over the month of November and into the bowl game that would warrant the new staff saying, hey, that is the guy for the job? And I haven't heard that. I haven't heard anyone say, hey, look, they really want to keep Van Buren around. Now, would you love to have Van Buren around as your backup guy? Sure. That means you don't have to go out and get another one. And he's already in place. At the same time, I just don't know if Van Buren goes for that, because as y'all noted, he's got high level SEC competition starts at 2 schools that's inching close to 20 starts. Like, you're going to be a junior. So in the transfer portal era, I would think they're hard pressed to keep him. But look, we'll see what happens, because it's day 1 here, and we don't know for sure what Levit or Sorsby or these guys are going to do, or whom else hits the portal at quarterback, right? So it's something to monitor, because I do think that they'll have to take multiple quarterbacks. And I'm sure you've talked about it on this show plenty, Josh, already, but this portal window is the final opportunity to build your roster. There's no spring window. The old February signing day, I'm pouring one out for it right now, but it isn't what it was before. Not many guys out there that you're going to sign out of high school that are going to come in and be impact guys for you year one. And we led this off with JD talking about Portal King. Lane is in year one at LSU. Brian Kelly got fired for winning 8 and 9 games only. It's win now time. Like, you just went to Oxford and won 10 games, which they never do in Oxford, in back-to-back-to-back years, whatever it was. You come here to get LSU to the playoffs. I think that means, with also the budget they have pledged towards NIL, that you're out there spending, and you're not going to spend it more on a position than quarterback. Now, even more so now that Dylan Stewart is staying at South Carolina. So I think that they're going to swing for the fences here, and then you see if you can't find that younger guy. I'll use an example. This is not who I'm talking about, like a Deuce Knight, right? Like someone who is a freshman, hadn't played yet, has eligibility, has talent, and is willing to maybe say, hey, if the program is big enough, if the offense is good enough, I'm willing to come in there and compete and maybe be the second guy, knowing that the guy in front of me only is going to be on campus 6 months.
I wonder if Dante Moore and what he's doing right now in the college football playoff won't make that a little bit more in vogue, a guy who sat for a year behind Dylan Gabriel and had success. But Shay, going back to these two quarterbacks we're talking about between Levit and Sorsby, let's just say all things are equal. Medical checks out with Levit. Let's say the price tag for both these guys is about at the same price point. Is there an inkling for you when it comes to who Kiffin would take if he could have either or?
Both. I'll go Levit. I've heard enough people say that Lane Kiffin is very high on Levit. The day Levit hit the portal, LSU's name was front and center, and now he's in with a do not contact tag. I'm not going to be surprised if he's on campus this weekend. This has been the guy that they've been targeting from the start. I think Sorsby, with all the talent in the world, remember, he's been flirting with the NFL draft, right? So, like, it was thought, oh, he's going to the draft. And then it was, oh, he's definitely going to Tech. And then it was, hey, watch out. LSU's kind of getting in the mix. Now, as Gary Furman says, hey, Miami's getting in the mix. There hasn't been all of that with Levit. It's kind of been, hey, watch out for LSU. And there's other teams involved here, but I can tell you that the Portal King himself certainly has a very strong affinity for what he thinks a healthy, as JD said, all things equal, what a healthy Levit could do in his offense.
Levit State University, LSU, Levit State.
All right. We can't talk quarterback the entire time with you, but EJ opened the door. I didn't prompt him.
He did it
on that Bryce Underwood.
That's true. I was there.
If you guys were watching the show earlier, EJ wouldn't talk transfer portal without mentioning that. I would say it sounded like EJ was like 97% sure that Bryce Underwood was going to remain, but he just couldn't finalize that final 3%, it seemed.
I've been there before.
If we're going to go down that road, Shay, I mean, would there be any chance that LSU could circle back on Bryce Underwood if he were to hit the portal?
Yeah, you definitely would. I mean, he's talented. Look, I was in this spot a year ago. I bet on your show that I said there was a 97% chance he signed with LSU, and 3% chance he went to Michigan. And then Larry Ellison comes in and he goes to Michigan. Here's what I'll counter with.
Yeah.
From far away, right? Opposite sides of the country. EJ's in the mix up there with Ann Arbor stuff. It's not been a great run for Michigan since that title win. It's been bad news after bad news after bad news. You have to think the number one priority for Michigan football is keeping Bryce Underwood. You lose Bryce Underwood, where is that team right now?
Yeah, you have no identity.
So he's a native. He's a Belleville kid. Grew up down the road. A year ago, 12 months ago, you flipped him. You did all of that work to get a $10+ million deal. You can't let that bomb explode on you too. The program would be viewed as in shambles. How are you getting other guys to come in now that you're trying to replace a quarterback? I just find it hard pressed to believe that they would allow it to get to that spot.
Right.
And I honestly think with how fast behind the scenes, agents, everything else works, that they've been talking about this before even Sharon Moore's incident and getting arrested and all that, of like what the future held. A deal hasn't been announced, none of that. But I would think that if Van Buren, if Underwood and his camp were to say, hey, look, there's a market for us, this might not be the best spot, that we would have heard about it by now. If something would have leaked out. So I think Michigan's doing all they can to keep him. But yeah, if he hits the portal, LSU and every other team in America that needs a quarterback is going back up.
And like I said, I have a PhD in stirring the pot, and that was not my doing. EJ brought that to the show. I just had to address it with you now that you're on.
EJ has a PhD, a master's, a double PhD, everything in stirring the pot. So y'all two are just thick as thieves.
A lot of student loans.
It's dangerous.
A lot of debt.
A lot of on a show together. All right, so we're going to move on from the quarterback position. We know LSU is going to make a move there. They're probably going to also make a major move along the offensive line. I saw an old familiar name. Zalance Hurd is back in the portal. I know there was some issues that he had with the old staff, whether or not he was starting. I can't remember exactly. Maybe they were trying to push him to guard when he wanted to be tackle. But now that Brian Kelly's out, is there any chance that Hurd could be back at LSU?
Well, there's a chance. I mean, it's reported that he's in that million to multi-million-dollar price range. Remember, he's a third-year guy now. And yeah, he was at LSU so he's from Louisiana, 5-star. But he went to LSU, and Will Campbell and Emory Jones, 2 NFL players, were starting at the tackle spots. And when he didn't get to start after a year, he went to Tennessee. Now he's leaving Tennessee. Could he come back? Sure. I think he's going to be one of the most expensive people out there. Granted, the Portal King and Jim Billy Glasscock and this staff are not going to be scared to spend money if they feel that the guys are the right fit. And Eric Wolford, who they hired from Kentucky, he's the only guy that didn't come from the Ole Miss on-field staff. So he's actually been here the whole time. Like, he's been able to eval this O-line, who they want to keep, all that. It was their biggest struggle spot this year. They were bad in pass pro. They were way worse in run blocking. And that was kind of the case the year prior. Now you move into a situation where, Josh, 6 guys, and I'm on Do Not Disturb right now, so probably that number's over 10 on the LSU line, who have started games in the past 2 years and are now in the portal or had planned to enter the portal. So whether that would be the new O-line coach and Kiffin and the staff's evals and saying we're going in a new direction, whether that be the kids saying, hey, look, I was really close with Brad Davis. That's who I played for. And I kind of want to go somewhere else. Or whether it was a disagreement of, hey, I want this in NIL. And, well, we think you're worth this. And, well, I'm going to go into the portal and test the waters. It has to be rehauled, though. Here's where you start. The center, Braylon Moore, everyone thought he was going to go pro. He's not said anything yet. Now, you have to announce that by mid-January. They are working hard to keep him. So that will be one, because it could lock down your center. Then you're looking at a new right guard. You had 2 guys at left guard that you played both of them. Both of them are in the portal. Your left tackle's in the portal. And your right tackle, who is arguably your biggest struggle spot guy this year, Weston Davis, has said nothing. And then the guy who took over for him, Carius Kern, your 5-star freshman, hit the portal.
Right.
I don't think he comes back. That's one that I do not feel comes back. They've been working the left tackle, Tyree Adams. I don't know for sure if he'll come back, but long-winded way of saying, like, unless you're keeping Braylon Moore, you're getting 4 new O-linemen, maybe 5. And yeah, sure, some of these other guys that are on the roster could end up playing, but they're going to have to go heavy in the portal, which means if a guy like Lance Hurd is in, you're not picking up the phone. You're not putting on his film. You're not feeling it out. They are going to turn over every stone because that is outside of quarterback, that is the biggest spot that they have to go address in the portal.
All right, Shea Dixon, Bengal Tiger. I'm going to be on the website all weekend long. You guys are killing it. Appreciate you dropping by this transfer portal special today, Shea.
JD and Josh, I'm sorry. We didn't even get to – Ole Miss is still playing, so we didn't even get to talk Kewan Lacey or anybody. We just had to keep going.
That's a whole nother X factor. I mean, what do you think? Those guys are going to factor in, right? Some of them will. It's hard to talk about right now.
The
but
internet,
all right.
voicemail that goes out there.
Should I get a bold prediction here to finish it off?
Yeah, end us with a bold
I
prediction.
love it so much.
Knock us off our feet here, Shay.
So Harlem Berry, 5-star, number 1 running back, has already said he's staying at LSU. All right. Imagine a combo of Harlem Berry and Kewan Lacey, who obviously shined for Ole Miss this year and had a great second half last night after that fumble. With all this back and forth, boys, between LSU and Ole Miss, it's been mostly staff related. Well, here comes the portal.
Right.
I could see Kewan Lacey to LSU and Caden Durham to Ole Miss.
Wow.
Little running back for running back.
Little trade.
Little trade.
There.
I mean, I think
second in college football history.
Yeah, maybe we could. Yeah, the second big trade.
Yeah, between Nico and
right.
But Tennessee was first.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, they did. They were
yeah,
first.
JD did not give me enough time to answer the Aflac trivia question. I was all over it.
I apologize. That's on me. That's on me. Aflac in the mix. They're not a sponsor yet, so we gotta get
no free ads.
All right. Appreciate you, Shay. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, boys. Thanks.
I do some great work. I know you will. All right. We're gonna wrap this thing, but no, we got more news. We got more news. There's more quarterback news, but before we do that, guys, make sure you hit subscribe. Lock in here. When we go live, you get notified. I don't know when we're going live, so I can't even tell you. But if you're subscribed, you get notified when we do shows like these. When we get live commits on, go ahead, hit subscribe. It's going to be a wild off season here at the Rivals Recruit Channel. Kentucky.
Yep.
In the mix for Sam Levit. We've been talking all about Sam Levit, but Steve Wiltfong, Pete Nakos are now reporting that Kentucky enters the mix for Arizona State transfer Sam Levit. If you're in Sam Levit's shoes and you're leaving Kenny Dillingham in the nest that he's created out there in Tempe, where would you want to go if you're Sam Levit?
What I've always said is, just in life in general, if you want to be something professionally, you go to the place that assists you the best in getting to that profession. And so if I'm Sam Levit, I want to go be a first-round draft pick in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
I see what Jackson Dart just was. I see what Trinidad Chambliss is right now at Ole Miss. Going to LSU to me would be a really difficult thing to turn down. I do think it's interesting, though, the discussion around Oregon and Dante Moore, if he goes pro. I mean, Sam Levit's a guy that's from the state of Oregon, so that wouldn't be too difficult to see happening. To answer your question, LSU and Lane Kiffin to me makes the most sense, but you also could have the conversation about Kentucky and Will Stein. Like all Will Stein's done the last 2 years as the OC at Oregon has been produced Heisman finalist caliber quarterback. So then there's a lot there.
If you're going to say that about Will Stein, then what about Miami? If you're looking at it from that perspective about what they've churned out in these 1-year rentals, how can you not think that Miami's a great fit when Cam Ward goes number 1 overall, Carson Beck makes a ton of money and proves his value that he's worth it as they head to the semifinals? You'd have to highly consider the Canes.
Here's the only thing with LSU that would excite me if I was Sam Levit. If this is all about improving his NFL draft stock, which you have to imagine is a big part of this, I would like to have the filter of playing SEC football on my tape for every NFL scout. Like, hey, that dude, that corner, he's a first-round pick. I just shredded him. Hey, that linebacker is going to be a top pick. Hey, that's a safety. All these guys that I'm playing against on Saturdays, that's the closest thing to the NFL possible. That'd be the edge for me with LSU versus those other candidates.
Yeah, really interesting. So I'll share mine after this, but what was your biggest takeaway from the show? Just listening to Pete Nakos. We had on Steve Wiltfong. We had on some team site guys. What's your biggest takeaway right now with the portal?
The biggest takeaway should be and is whatever Sorsby and Levit do, the rest of the dominoes will quickly follow. So those two, whatever happens there at the top, we're going to start getting action across the board. And all of a sudden, it's like, shoot, music stopped. If you're a transfer portal quarterback or you're in the market for a quarterback, you better go grab your guy and get a chair because it's going to happen fast.
That's my takeaway as well, but maybe not exactly that. Because I come from this like recruiting background and we talk about these guys all the time, it's kind of shocking to me. And of course, if you watch college football the last 2 years, it's not that shocking, but it's shocking to me that when Dylan Riola and DJ Lagway are both in the portal, they are not the ones leading the quarterback dominoes. Like they are in a way forced to fall in line and wait and see what their market's going to be. Because and the other thing is when we had on the experts and they were talking about Sam Levit and Sorsby, they're really talking like there's 2 quarterbacks for like 4 teams.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
If you kind of do the science around their answers, there's really 4 teams that are in play for these top 2, which means maybe a DJ Lagway after this initial wave comes, maybe DJ Lagway will be the top name, but right now he's not. And that's a huge takeaway for me, considering how highly touted, how much money was spent on him coming out of high school. And it's just, it's a free market. You're only worth what you're truly worth to these other teams. And right now it seems like Levit and Sorsby are the most highly coveted names. And then it's not even close to that second.
It's
tier.
The Bachelor. There's only so many roses.
Right.
You got 2 roses for 4 contestants. And I'm sorry, if you don't receive a rose, you will be going to the rest of the portal quarterback market. And best of luck to you.
Yeah. And it's interesting because there are no rules in the transfer portal, that contracts don't mean anything, that this is the freest market you're only getting paid on what you did for me right now.
Yeah.
Because even if you ink that 3-year deal, there's ways to get out of it, whether you're a player or a program. They really mean nothing. So having DJ Lagway in the transfer portal really shows that what you did 2 years ago, whether you were the number 1 player or the number 50th player at your position, it only matters what you did at the college level. And we're seeing who truly is the most coveted.
And you'd think too, with Pete speaking to, guys like DJ Lagway kind of assessing the market once the dominoes start to fall into place, you would think now, okay, Levit's off the board, Sorsby's off the board. Hey, I need a quarterback still. Maybe I would have paid X for DJ Lagway, all things being equal at the start of the cycle. But now when the clock's ticking and I got to get a quarterback, maybe I'll throw a few more dollars towards a Lagway or Riola to get him the boat.
Yeah, really interesting. So we'll continue tracking this, but you guys talk to us. We just brought you over a 1-hour show with experts, with insight, with intel, and it's only day 1. The portal's open for another 15 days. We're going to be back here on Sunday. We will have the inside scoop. Then on Monday, we'll have the Wilt Falling Whip round, and we are back at it. You guys make sure you go follow JD Patel. He is on the On3 page. That is the national channel for the On3 network. Everybody's over there doing it. They're talking transfer portal right now. They're talking playoffs right now. And we will be back. Thank you guys for joining us. JD?
Pleasure of mine, brother. That was awesome. Beautiful.